The hosts of Two Bored Apes are not registered investment advisors. The podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only. Nothing said on it should be construed as investment advice.
Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff. Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff.
Welcome to episode 30 of Two Bored Apes. I'm your host, Jamie. I'm here with my friend and co-host, Roy. Roy, how are you?
I'm good. I'm full. I literally just had a big meal. Like
you were supposed to do that after the recording, but instead,
yeah, we were gonna. We didn't need to get into all of that, but just had
we don't.
Steak and just a lot of sides, and it was
we don't need to get
delicious.
into the stuff about the recording, but your dinner, we got to get into that for sure.
I'm well, though, like all things considered. How are you?
Good. I'm good. This is the 8th Twitter Q&A episode.
Mm-hmm. The first video Twitter Q&A episode.
True. And let's just hop right in. First question comes from Stephen Miller.
Whoa.
Okay.
Twitter Q&A.
Stephen Miller says, are ERC 721A contracts going to be the new standard for Ethereum NFTs? Or is there some drawback in the contract configuration that most investors just don't know about? You gonna have some green tea while you handle that?
I am not a dev. You are not a dev. I don't know if... Have you heard of 721A?
I have heard of it. I've basically just heard that there's a new theoretical standard that makes some sort of improvement, but honestly, I don't know what it is. I would assume it'll start taking more, of the share, because I assume that it is actually an improvement, but I don't think, like when they say the new standard, I assume there'll be a 721B at some point where people, think of something better. And in general, maybe we'll have just a more broad and well-rounded choice of different contracts to go with. And, they'll all basically be NFTs, but there'll be just more specifically designed for whatever you're actually trying to accomplish with that NFT, what you're actually trying to represent and stuff.
Yeah.
I wish we knew about it, though. Maybe I can do a quick Google and see it.
So 721A came, I think Azuki sort of invented it when they launched their contract. One of the big improvements is that no matter how many NFTs you mint, you pay gas once. So currently, previously to that, you'd be paying gas for every NFT, but they figured out some way to make it so you just pay one gas amount.
Yeah. All the top Google results basically just indicate that the major difference is, if you're minting multiple of them, you'll be paying the gas equivalent of minting one basically on an ERC 721. Whereas normally on an ERC 721, if you were going to mint one Pudgy Penguin, you'd pay 0.03 in ETH or whatever. And if you were going to do two, it would basically scale up exactly
additive
with the number.
Yeah. Meta Angels just had their drop today. I minted 10. It cost me $40 in gas. So that's 0.00 some amount. So they say they use the 721A standard. But yeah, I'm assuming there are other things people are doing to optimize gas, and I don't know exactly how many of those are in the 721A and whether people are going to keep, I'm sure people will keep iterating on top of it.
Yeah.
But as far as drawbacks go, I don't know any. I'm not very familiar with it.
I mean, theoretically, there could be some weird vulnerability, but I would doubt that because, when you have open source code and protocols, you're basically only improving. Because you're building off of a solid base rather than trying to rebuild from the ground up where you could mess up. So, theoretically, again, neither of us have actually looked into it specifically very deeply on this, but for the most part, anything that is wrong with ERC 721A would likely be a vulnerability in ERC 721 already because it's 95% the same code or whatever.
Yeah. Nice shirt, by the way. I just noticed.
Thank you.
Robot 4 from Saga.
Yep.
Very nice.
Looks like a blit knot, doesn't it?
It does look a lot like a blit knot. Man, I love them. All right. Question 2 from Artemis. if you are an NFT artist that wants to, you are an NFT artist, Jamie. If you
True.
are an NFT artist that wants to keep their art affordable, let's say under $50 each, as a collector, would you prefer that they deploy to Polygon or still deploy to Ethereum? And the new advances in low gas contracts change the answer. I feel like you have probably more to say on this.
Yeah, I probably do. For me, I would probably be okay collecting on Polygon, especially at that price point, as they're saying. But if I can go outside the scope of what they actually asked, I think if they are an NFT artist that's planning on selling NFTs for approximately that price, I would encourage them to look into Tezos, because I think it's probably a better option than either Mainnet or Polygon. The reason being that I think there is a market on Mainnet for collecting art, and there's a market for collecting art on Tezos, but there's not really one on Polygon. So their ability to actually find buyers will be much worse on Polygon. So, you have the savings or whatever in the gas for the collectors when they're trying to buy, and you when you're trying to mint. But if there's nobody there to buy it, it's, what's the point of even making an NFT maybe? I mean, there still are, but I think for the way we're reading this question, it seems like they're definitely planning on selling it. So you might actually want to look into Tezos, where there actually is an active market of people trying to buy cheap, low gas art NFTs. But just to expand on it a little bit further, as far as me as a collector, I think that as the price scales up, I care much more about how durable and decentralized I believe that the chain that it's stored on actually is. So, again, at a price point like 50, I'm much more okay getting something on Polygon or Tezos. But as the price gets higher and higher, I much more want it to actually be on Mainnet. And just one more thing is, if they're thinking about doing additions rather than one of ones, that's a situation where you can use ERC 1155s, and then you can still be on Mainnet, but have a relatively cheap gas experience.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that. The part about there being a market on Mainnet and Tezos, but not on Polygon, is very on point, because, it just for whatever reasons, people tend not to value or care about NFTs on Polygon anywhere near as much as Tezos or Mainnet.
I think
it might partly be because of like all the spam, scam, airdrops, and like generally stuff that collectors get on Polygon that have very little value. And so we're just conditioned to think that NFTs on Polygon are not generally valuable unless they're from certain specific gaming projects primarily.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like it mostly is used for stuff where scale is really a relevant factor. And so it's used for things like gaming assets, where there's going to be a lot of microtransaction type things, and, also some DeFi stuff. But as far as, again, art NFTs, it just doesn't really exist there. Now, theoretically, such a market could emerge. And if you established yourself early on there, that could be quite beneficial. But it's tough to try and create an entire art market as opposed to just going where there's actually already people that care about that.
And presumably that people have been trying. Like, Polygon has been decently usable for like 8-10 months.
Yeah, I mean, I did it at the end of Abstract of the Day when gas was getting so crazy on Mainnet. I minted like 10 or 15 of the last ones in the project. And there was, obviously infinite savings in gas for people, but there was just much less people interested in collecting art there.
All right.
Our next question comes from Prater, which was a very high up political position in ancient Rome. So they're probably going to want to read my newest Substack post, which is publishing in 7 minutes, which we'll link to in the show notes. Prater says, how should your NFT investment strategy scale as your bankroll increases? For example, 1F versus 10F versus 100F. How do you make sure you're making good decisions at greater scale?
It's a great question.
It is a great question. I would say first off, it depends on what you want to do, because some people that have 100F kind of want to just stay near there and grow it very slowly, whereas some people have a never-ending pit inside of them that they try to fill with money, and so when they have 100, they want to turn that into 1,000. And so you have to think, like, I think sort of implicitly that they're of the mind that you want to be focusing more on growth at a bankroll of 1F and more at conserving what you have when you have 100 Ethereum. But that is really up to personal preference.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's an excellent point. And a huge part of it is also how much time are you willing to invest into investing, and not that we give investing advice, but into your NFT strategy. And as you grow to say 100 ETH bankroll, if you want to continue in that same sort of like aggressive growth strategy that, say, a smaller bankroll where you mint and flip 1 or 2 NFTs, it's just going to take more time, because you're just going to be managing more projects. If you think a project is good and you're bullish on it, instead of buying 1, 2, or 3, now for that same sort of reasonable percentage of your bankroll allocation, you're buying 10, 20, 50, 100. And then it takes a lot of time to sell those and sort through them and see what the rare ones are and not. So I think just naturally, partially because of that and partially because of the desire to preserve money and lower risk, as bankrolls go up, the allocation towards blue chips also goes up. And blue chips are just sort of projects that, people are happy to just have and sit on and not really feel the need to actively trade or like wait for a Gary V tweet and sell when it's pumping, because one tweet is not going to significantly change even like, say, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Yes, of course, certain tweets will affect it a little bit, but it's not like
Super Bowl stuff is sort of the big thing people are thinking about right now.
Coin. But it seems unlikely that, say, Justin Bieber buys an ape. It's not like there are hundreds of people going, all right, I got to get an ape now on FOMO's. Like, it's so well established. Whereas if Justin Bieber were to buy a crypto Mori or something, so many people will go crazy. It's like, all right, so he's got apes and crypto Moris, rah, 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 and the market will go nuts. So
if you think about it in terms of how much F is going to go into the project from the same amount of publicity or whatever. So for instance, again, you say Justin Bieber buys an ape and then Justin Bieber buys a crypto Mori. Let's just assume that would send 100F of random liquidity into that market. In one case, you're going to have literally one floor piece bought, and in another one, you're going to have the 70 cheapest ones listed. That's going to have a very big difference in the project, whereas the first one is just, okay, one crazy eyes ape is off the floor,
How do you make sure you're making good decisions at greater scale is the second part of the question.
This is not a direct answer to that, but while you were answering, it just sort of made me think, in general, you're talking about getting 10, 20, 50 pieces now and stuff. All of this stuff is a lot easier now than it used to be. Like, if you think about what Pranksy was doing like early last year and stuff, like with collection offers and Genie and stuff like that. I think you were actually telling me the other day there's another sweeping product besides
XYZ. It's cheaper, I'm pretty sure.
Better gas efficiency. But yeah, that kind of thing makes it a lot easier to be able to sort of accurately utilize a portfolio of that size without having to spend, without the time scaling up as crazily as you might think it would and as it used to.
Yeah. Pranksy must have had assistants doing stuff for him, because he was buying thousands of things and listing them, and I don't know, maybe he just did it all manually.
So how do you make sure you're making good decisions at greater scale? I think it's probably similar to doing it at the lower scale. You have to go into it with open eyes and understanding, like, honestly, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, it's impossible to judge if you're making good decisions in the first place. So, again, if you're trying to do more conserving and slow growing at a higher scale, you need to be more seriously looking at having not all of your eggs in one basket. We talked about this on maybe the last episode or two ago, but just I had too much of a percentage of my net worth in Yuga Lab stuff, and so I had to sell meat. And I had one ape, one mutant, and two dogs, and it was just all of that was so valuable, and the rest of all of my NFTs was basically only equal or something like that to that value. So it was too much, and so I had to take some off of the table, even though I'm as bullish on that or more than like any other NFT project. It was just too high of a percentage, and so that's the situation where you're kind of, again, as you're scaling up, you're not necessarily trying to maximize the speed of your growth, because you want to care about the downside a little bit more, because losing half of a 1F bankroll is probably going to be something that you can recover from a lot easier than losing half of a 100F bankroll.
Yeah. One more thought I guess I have on this is it's just if you are going for aggressive growth, I guess, it's so much easier for your strategy to be buying into lower price projects rather than tying all of your liquidity up in, say, an ape or a couple of mutants or even Azukis or Cool Cats, or like it's so much more difficult for Cool Cats to go from 10 ETH to 100 ETH floor than for a project that's at 1 ETH to 10 ETH. Just it requires so much more capital, and then 100 to 1,000 is just ludicrous. So it really is just like, sort of Yeah.
We were just saying with the Justin Bieber example, basically, if you're just kind of thinking about the total liquidity in the market just kind of moving around, you can kind of visualize or understand how much easier it is to see explosive growth in a small project with the same amount of liquidity moving to it as with a project that has a very high floor, or even, so a medium high floor, like we might describe something that's 3F right now or whatever, versus something that's 0.2.
One last thing I think I have to say is that I'm starting to think more and more that as your bankroll grows, the correct strategy for a lot of reasons might just be to find like a small amount of projects that you have a lot of conviction in and go heavy into those, rather than sort of like mid last year, the approach was really spray and pray. You could just mint everything and, most things would go up. And the ones that didn't go up, you'd make enough on the other ones to, well more than cover your costs. But now there are just so many projects, even so many like half decent projects, that I'm not sure that is the best approach financially speaking, but also like just from a time perspective, just keeping track of all these projects is obviously difficult. But like if you find 3 to 5 projects that you love, buying 20, 30, 50 of them, even at like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 each, you can put like 10% of your bankroll into Woodies, 10% into MFers, 10% into probably not World of Women at this price, but like Boss Beauties, or something else. And then it's a large allocation. In like 10 ETH into a project is a lot, but if you really believe in it, then it's also a lot easier to hold when it goes up. And like that's probably another thing to consider when you do have a larger bankroll. Or maybe it's more like how to get a larger bankroll. It's like holding on to projects when they go up 2x, 3x, 5x. It's very easy, and in many cases probably the right decision to take profits and sell and get out and put that into another project. But then you do miss out on those cases of getting a Bored Ape from 0.1 to 100 ETH. Like most people, understandably, sold along the way.
Right. So when you're talking about like maybe focusing on something more like only 10 projects instead of 50, that's a situation where when you do that, you're going to have more pieces from each individual project, which is going to allow you to be able to sell a little bit on the way up and more easily hold some for that moon potential that people talk about. Whereas, if you have one piece from 150 different projects, it's like, when do you sell any of them? The only way to really know when to sell any of them would be to like intensely follow all of these communities and projects, which is a very impractical thing to do.
And even then you'd be flipping a coin most of the time.
You're still guessing a lot. Yeah, of course.
All
Okay,
right.
for a podcast that doesn't do investment advice, I think that's a pretty thorough answer to that.
Yeah. Katina Tor says, any thoughts on
I
how
would
would
not
you
have
say it?
pronounced that like that. Cadenator.
That's how I used to. Well,
Okay.
anyway. Any thoughts on cool things the POAPs might be used for in the future?
Oh, we don't want to hear about POAPs. Those have been such a
So-
thorn in our side.
Yeah, we're not
More
going to
on
do a
Vitor's
POAP
side,
this
really.
episode. Yeah, poor Vitor. And poor
But-
listeners, because it's just a struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, because they've been disappointed as well.
Mhm.
But theoretically, what kinds of things could they be used for in the future?
I mean, it could be like, if we go into merch, it could be like certain merch is exclusively available if you have one of these POAPs. It could be, we could just
Custom
airdrop
airdrops.
cool art.
There's a lot.
Art, yeah,
It's it's
whatever.
they're just
Yeah.
they're NFTs, and they let us. You get to know exactly who has them just by looking at, the list of holders on Etherscan or whatever. I guess it would probably be XDieScan or something. But regardless, it's sort of the same thing as any other NFT project in that we know who owns it, and we know that they're legitimate ones, and so theoretically, you can get gated access or things to you via that. And we don't have super specific plans, but it's definitely something that we would like to do. If the POAPs had gone better, we would probably have be continuing to put more thought into how we're going to do that. But we're probably going to be doing something, or likely to do some of our sort of own POAPs on Polygon or something like that, because actually using POAP has been very frustrating.
Yeah, and it's not that difficult to just get a list of ETH addresses and then airdrop on Polygon.
Right.
Takes 10 minutes and $5 or something.
Yeah. Our next question is from Joro. Joro says, how to better manage security with being active, wanting to move some NFTs to a hardware vault, but still want to be able to verify in Discord, token gated drops, etc. First thing I would say was be able to read and understand the pop-ups that MetaMask gives you when you're going to sign a transaction, because it's giving you a lot of information, and people are not really differentiating between the different types of transactions that they're approving and sending and stuff. And so I would say that would be my first one, because a lot of this stuff that they are specifically talking about being a little bit worried doing with a hardware wallet, and that I see other people on Twitter talk about, there's literally nothing to worry about if you're actually signing the transaction that you think you're signing. Like just confirming that I control this wallet. Nothing can possibly happen when you just connect to a site like that. You know what I mean? But you might think you're just connecting to a site when you're actually giving approval to so-and-so, if you don't actually know how to read the pop-ups on
you're
MetaMask.
connecting to a scam site that looks like Collabland, and it basically, if they're asking you to pay gas just to prove that you own something, that's a big red flag. You should never have to do that, because they can read your wallet basically for free.
Yeah.
Definitely recommend getting a hardware wallet to basically anyone that has any sort of significant, reasonable type of NFT portfolio or crypto portfolio. It is so much more secure. But yes, you still need to be careful with what you're doing. I guess probably best practice would be to have your high value assets in a cold wallet and just never interact with any smart contracts ever.
But that's such a flawed idea, because, like, for instance, you had your ape, you wouldn't get your mutant and you wouldn't get your dog if you never interacted with smart contracts.
Yes, I mean, in theory, you could like transfer it out of that wallet and then back in, and then all that kind of stuff.
I mean, what's the difference between having it in the secure wallet and having it in the secure wallet? Sometimes it's like you've crossed that threshold. So what's the
there are people working on really cool things which will allow you to have your NFTs in one wallet and then like prove ownership of it from a different wallet. I saw
something like that on Twitter, but there was too many tweets explaining it, so I didn't want to read them all.
Yeah, no, I've heard like a couple of different people talk about working on that lately. And it just seems like it's definitely doable technologically, and it just seems like something that everyone would want. So keep an eye out for those.
don't rush and get tricked. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes with these bigger projects, where the main NFT is quite valuable and something you would want to store in a hardware wallet, there are going to be times where you need to interact with that NFT in order to get an airdrop, for instance, although it wouldn't technically be an airdrop if you had to use it, but you know what I'm saying. But like, don't just see a message on Discord and think that all of a sudden it's there and rush in to go do it, because that's where you can get burnt. If you can just kind of sit back and wait and go, oh, this actually is this. I'm confirming that this is definitely the site. I'm reading what MetaMask is saying when it pulls up. That's when you're able to interact with your NFTs that are in a hardware wallet in a way that gets you the value that you can get by interacting with the NFTs, while not actually exposing yourself to the danger of just getting really excited and going to, mint this thing that you're supposedly on a whitelist for by having this.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I guess, like, to answer the very first part of the question, how to better manage security with being active. All of your activity probably shouldn't be on your hardware wallet. You should have your hardware wallet, which is a vault, and your cold wallet that you interact with very sparingly, and then a hot wallet, which is what you do your like day-to-day activity with. If you want to mint something somewhat random, or just general trading, I think most people use a hot wallet for that. And then obviously you need to be even more aware of the things you're signing and cognizant of, because but it at least protects your high value assets, so that in the worst case scenario, your hot wallet gets compromised, your PC gets hacked, someone gets your seed phrase, whatever ends up happening, they only have access to your like day-to-day transactions and funds rather than your high value assets.
Yep. Yeah. True. Next question comes from Floor Gang. Floor Gang says, is OpenSea the way to go, or should creators actually own their minting contracts, and why? This goes a little bit back to the second question, where somebody was talking about being an artist selling inexpensive ones. I would say the more seriously you take yourself as an artist, and the more effort and prestige and value or whatever you're putting into the NFTs, and you want your collectors to put into it, the more you need to be thinking about having your own smart contract.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's getting so much easier for artists and creators to deploy their own contracts with basically knowing no Solidity code. There are sites like Manifold, and there's even more,
I think
user-friendly sites coming up.
Giving that as an option now, even to mint through. I don't know if you saw that.
I have not seen that. So you can have your own contracts. Yeah.
And I know a long time ago that I had asked Nate before he got included for running people, if that was something that they were planning in the future, not specifically with Manifold, but with incorporating the ability for artists to have their own contract. And he said, yes, definitely. Nice. So this might be the first iteration of it.
Yeah.
But I definitely saw on Twitter somebody was showing a drop-down menu that basically showed like mint through Rarible, mint through OpenSea, mint through Manifold, all the same.
Yeah. I definitely think it's the better way to go rather than using the OpenSea shared contract for the most part. The one benefit is that you can use the OpenSea shared contract and not pay gas to deploy your NFTs.
Right.
It's like fake creation of them. It doesn't actually create an NFT on the blockchain. It just creates one that is viewable on their marketplace. And then if someone actually buys it, in that transaction, the NFT is actually created and sent to them. So you don't actually have to pay gas to put some NFTs and list some NFTs. And that's, for an artist starting out, if you want to list many pieces, that's got its advantages.
Right. And now a lot of artists, myself included, are sort of seeing the drawback to having music, because now, a lot of us are on Looks Rare, and you can literally see the NFT there, but you can't actually see the art that, the metadata of that NFT is pointing to there, unless, and I believe this is the technical understanding of it, unless OpenSea gives LooksRare API access, which it seems very unlikely that they would do to their biggest competitor. So, anybody that looks at any of my Abstract of the Days on LooksRare, you just aren't seeing the image. You can see that an NFT exists there and stuff, but you can't actually see the art unless you're over on some place that has access to OpenSea's API, such as OpenSea.
That seems...
But there's other sites as well that you can see it. But, again, LooksRare is directly their biggest threat, so it's likely that they will do that.
Yeah. Cool. Balding under 30. Is crypto not Silicon Valley-y enough for us to stop cancel culture from taking over, or are VCs and PR needs going to force it upon the space? I don't fully understand that question. Is crypto not Silicon Valley enough? But I mean, they're asking... is like,
this person doesn't like cancel culture.
Yes,
and
is there a way to
it's
stop
something that happens in Silicon Valley and was hoping that it wouldn't happen here, but now feels like they're seeing it happen here.
Yeah. That's seems like the gist of it. What do you think, Jamie?
I think that cancel culture is mostly not a real thing. It's something that people say a lot to describe lots of situations where, in my opinion, people are sort of justifiably facing consequences for their words or actions. And it's thrown around as a term to dismiss actual harm that's been done and actual reasonable discussion of consequences for them. Specifically lately, what's happened in this space, Brantley was the big one, but now there's also someone that had something to do with Super Rare.
Yeah.
That's even newer.
That one seemed wild.
It did, but there, so the thing to get into that one specifically, even though the Brantley one I think is much bigger and has been more talked about, the Super Rare one, people are saying this person got canceled for tweeting Kanye West lyrics many years ago. And those Kanye West lyrics happen to have the N-word in them. And so, people are very up in arms because you should be able to tweet song lyrics many years ago and not get fired today, which is reasonable, I would say. But also people have shown there's a bunch of tweets from her where she was talking about how much she hates Mexican people and stuff. And I don't think that Super Rare specifically said, hey, this person tweeted Kanye West lyrics, so we're firing her. It was a more generalized statement about conduct and stuff like that. And so theoretically, could also be referencing the fact that this person is open in their hatred of Mexican people, which I think is more of an issue than just tweeting lyrics from a song.
Lyrics, yeah.
But that's not as good of a story for people who are raging against the concept of cancel culture than it is to just go, she got fired for tweeting Kanye lyrics.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the Brantley one specifically?
Yeah,
that was much bigger.
That was a huge thing, yeah.
And has been much more talked about for a few days.
So Brantley was, I don't know exactly what his role was, head of operations.
Director of operations.
At
and
ENS.
Also the number one delegate, sorry.
Yeah, at ENS, the Ethereum name service, which is enormous, fantastic protocol that's been around since 2017, allows people to own a .eth Ethereum address basically and like connect it with their 0x blah, blah, blah thing. Plus they have a lot of other cool things in the works. You can like, I think, merge an NFT with it and have like your, and like there's websites and stuff. They're doing a lot of cool stuff, but they're primarily known for .eth addresses. And yeah, so he was head of operations, and someone, I guess like 3 or 4 days ago, found a tweet that he wrote 6 years ago that was very, very toxic and hateful. It was like, I maybe I'll pull it up because I don't want to paraphrase it. Twitter searching skills are...
Now, Roy, are you worried you're going to get canceled if you read this tweet out loud?
I am
Or
not
you think
worried
it's
about
okay
being
in the
cancelled.
context of quoting?
I think it's okay in the context of that. Who was it? I am DC Investor made a tweet yesterday saying, if you have any sort of a following right now, people are combing through your entire history to find someone to cancel you. And I was like, good luck. I'm pretty happy I didn't say anything.
I've heard that this Ape Benjamin used to say a ton of problematic shit and has been very, very aggressively cleaning out their old tweets that people would have issues with. And he's been tweeting a lot lately about like, all I can do is try and be better today than I was yesterday. Like very vague references to it.
All right, I found the tweet. Brantley.eth said, homosexual acts are evil. Transgenderism doesn't exist. Abortion is murder. Contraception is a perversion. So is masturbation and porn. May 13th, 2016.
So that tweet was the main flashpoint of it. And then there was just a backlash as people saw that and started talking about it. And then, there's a lot to it, so I'm going to sort of paraphrase. But what happened was there was basically a big Twitter Spaces that he was in and other people were in where they talked about it. And before that, there was like another tweet where he said, "Oh, I've got like a mob following me now. I've got my first mob." And he sort of referenced the fact that in his profile, the first thing it says is Catholic. And he's like, "Oh, I guess people finally read my profile."
Yeah.
Which is basically to say that I'm Catholic. So of course I believe these things, which is weird because we know lots of Catholic people do not have these same beliefs. That's besides the point. Also, further in the Twitter Spaces, kind of just double down on all of these opinions. And then, people continued to be upset that he didn't grow or acknowledge that there was something wrong with it or whatever. And again, lots more to it in terms of the specifics of the way he maybe portrayed all religious people from the Abrahamic religions, meaning Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, of having identical views, that sort of thing. But, also people then basically were able to just search for his name on Twitter plus the word like gay. And there's like hundreds of other tweets where he's saying lots of terrible stuff, I would say, but other people go smart stuff, godly stuff, or whatever would be maybe their opinion of it. But anyway, so ultimately the company that hired him to be director of operations, which is something like it's a nonprofit TNL or something, whatever, something like that, ended up firing him, and people were upset with that. People thought maybe. I think part of the problem is that there's an idea that all of this stuff is really decentralized in a way that it's not yet. And so they're thinking like, okay, if some people disagree, some people don't, some people are in the middle, let's just have a DAO vote and the DAO can decide what to do. But it was not up to the DAO ultimately. And so that is sort of against the Web3 principles that some people feel like we're building, and ENS is a big part of. And sort of another side to that same thing is that the part of it that's Web3 and permissionless and all that stuff is the protocol itself, which continues to go on, and he will be continuing to use if he wants to or not use if he wants to, and none of us can stop him from that. But his hired position at this company, he was fired from. Yeah, I've talked too much. I'll let you say some stuff.
I think we basically covered the gist of it, of what happened. Let me just read the question. I guess there's no real specific question there. Another point that, or a thing I heard, of a lot of people were upset that he was removed and saying, someone shouldn't be removed for their religious beliefs or something like that, which I agree with, but it's sort of when you take those religious beliefs and spout hate or derogatory comments or demeaning comments to others. It's sort of like you can have religious beliefs, but then you can have there's actions and words as well. And I don't know, actions and words have consequences. That's the world we live in. There was one specific example I remember of an employee or an ex-employee who tweeted out talking about how he left working there because of, the environment that it the environment having Brantley involved. And he
Right.
very specifically said that, I felt not wanted, all this kind of stuff. And so people were saying, well, what about this person who got soft cancelled? Or like, I don't like the word cancelled either, but
yeah. I think one thing that I also have a bit of an issue with when people talk about it as a religious thing, in terms of these beliefs coming from his religion, this literal exact same religious texts that are preaching this stuff are also telling you that you can't shave and you can't eat shellfish and you can't wear clothing of mixed cloth fibers. And it's like, okay, ultimately, if it is his religion that he's being persecuted for, and it is his religious views that he's espousing, then we would have to also see him actually following these other things, which he doesn't. So he's going, okay, I like the part about God and Jesus saving me and going to heaven and keeping down these minority groups that are historically disenfranchised. But that other stuff that actually inconveniences me, that stuff I've just done away with. But the parts of it that inconvenience other people, that is my religion. That's when it becomes a thing where it doesn't seem like it's really about the religion. You're picking and choosing the parts of it in order to subjugate people that are already persecuted to some degree.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
so
ultimately,
probably not the answer
moving,
that Balding Under 30 wanted.
Probably not. I mean, we are moving more towards fully decentralized. I don't think we'll ever be fully decentralized, but more towards decentralization. But we're so far away from it still, and and
ultimately, the way that all of this stuff works, if you don't attach your name and your views to an address, you can be all of these things that Brantley hates, or you can be Brantley, anything in between, whatever. And you can just interact with all these smart contracts and do all of these things. And then you sort of do have the anonymous, decentralized, permissionless utopia that the people that are really on sort of the libertarian side of the crypto movement really believe in. And that is totally still available to all of us. But once you are getting hired at companies, once you're putting your name on things, once your address is connected to your persona, then that's when
you have to deal with the world. Yeah.
You're tweeting to the world with your identity, connected to your F address, connected to your place of work. That's when you have to deal with the realities of the old world. And that's part of it. I'm just going to say one more thing is that I did a series of 3 tweets yesterday where I was sort of, because I had been sort of debating a lot with people about all of this and trying to figure out where sort of where the main disagreements were coming from. And I think I sort of boiled it down. So I just want to read what I wrote here. Yeah. I said, I think what I'm seeing a lot in the disagreements here is that there's a camp, I'm in it, that sees the broadcasting and acceptance of prejudiced views as a step on the path to more real harm caused by people with those views, and another camp who thinks that beliefs and speech are one thing and that those words don't lead to real world violence unless the speech explicitly asks for real world violence. My understanding of history dictates that it's much easier to engage in large-scale violence against minority groups once you establish a society-wide belief in the less than status of those groups, and thus it is worth taking the espousing and normalizing of those views very seriously and not treating them as distinctly separate from actual threats of violence or violence itself on those groups.
That was very well said. Yeah, that was awesome.
And I think it's still fine to have sort of debates about what is acceptable to say, what is not acceptable to say, what are acceptable consequences, what are not acceptable consequences. But, people are very much already have their opinions made. And then when you throw in the way social media algorithms work and there's only 140 characters, or I guess it's 280 on Twitter to get across your things, it's hard to actually have substantive debates about any of the nuance, and it's much easier to just go, all these people are bigots, and all these people just want to cancel everybody, and not sort of have anything in between.
Yeah, can get very incendiary very quickly. All right, I think you're up next.
C10S3R says, what is important for somebody who tries to start his or her own project? Excuse me. What should be kept in mind, be accounted for, etc.?
I would have just said closer for that name, but C10S3R works.
Oh man, I'm not good at reading that lead speech. I just had no idea what I was reading. But that's just like hacker speech
hacker
for closer.
What is important for someone who starts their own project? What should be kept in mind? Be accounted for?
It's such a broad question. Like, what is your project?
I am going next week. I'm going to be in Dubai for 5 days, 10 hours a day, filming a video course, trying to answer this question. And I know that I'm not going to get close to finishing it because there is so much content. I mean, it
sounds like you should have a better idea of how to start answering it than me.
We're starting by saying how enormous of a question it is to answer. I guess you should think about first and foremost why you're starting an NFT project and what your goals are and what you're hoping to achieve. A lot of the times people don't really know why they're starting. Maybe it's just they see other people doing it, think it's cool. Maybe they think they can make money. Maybe they take something and say, hey, that would be cool if that was an NFT, but in reality, it's fine without it being an NFT. And there's no
I saw you make a tweet about that the other day about, does this thing actually need to be an NFT? And I thought it was a good point, but also I think there is something to, not making something intentionally that doesn't need to be an NFT, but about a sort of a serendipitous thing where something that maybe doesn't need to be an NFT, but when you do make it an NFT, like maybe something new happens when you add this to it that you couldn't have predicted until it was at least tried. So, I do want to err on the side of experimentation or for people to, at least, not necessarily me. But it is also, good to keep in mind that like, it's possible that it's sort of obvious maybe that an idea is actually just going to be worse as an NFT. To keep in mind why you're doing it.
Yeah, why you're doing it. Probably if you're trying to sell the NFT to lots of other people, if that's one of your metrics of success, from day one, think about like your marketing strategy, your branding strategy, how you're going to get other people interested in your project. Because at the end of the day, it's not that difficult to launch an NFT project compared to how difficult it is to get other people interested in it and want to buy it over the thousands of other NFT projects out there. So I think,
depending on your strengths, I guess, right? Some people might find it easier to do that marketing part than to make it. But as you're sort of alluding to, there's a ton of supply out there. There's lots of NFTs for people to buy, and they only have so much time and money to research and purchase NFTs. So what is the reason why yours would be one that people would be interested in?
Yeah, unique selling point or something like that. Try and do something unique, interesting, innovative, or take an existing idea and do it better. These are sort of things that are true in the startup world, the traditional world as well. It's like, I think obvious things like keep in mind, like manage your finances, like think of tax, think of how are you going to survive the bear market, in terms of like, I think this is we're going to get into this in the next question actually, so I won't go into too much detail about it, but
like have an idea of what your plan is to do with the funds raised in the sale, assuming that it's not a free mint, also. But you need to plan ahead, definitely for like the tax thing, but also you need to be thinking like, is this all going to the project, or are you trying to take some of it, and how is the community going to look at that, and just what is your plan?
Yeah, have a plan. And most of the time, you will probably need help. Like, many people make a successful NFT project generally. Obviously, there are examples of one people
Many
teams.
people collectively to make one project.
Right. Yeah. But again, if we're talking of like larger scale projects, PFP projects, gaming projects, anything like that, you just need large teams. You need people to sort of, at the very least, be in your Discord 24/7, so that when people join, they can get help and the space does not sleep. You need probably a dedicated person to handle marketing, a dedicated person to handle the Discord and community management, and a dedicated person to handle the smart contracts, the development side, the website. There are a lot of people, obviously the artists, and then like probably a product manager, project manager to oversee the whole thing. And a lot of different factors go into making a successful NFT project. And I think, again, like 6-8 months ago, middle of last year, one person could do it, two people could do it. They could whip together something, get a nice website, put a decent roadmap together, people would buy it. But now people are thankfully expecting more, hoping more, and like voting with their wallets.
They have more options.
Yeah, more options. There's competition.
So even if they don't necessarily want more, they have options that have more. So why not go gravitate to that one rather than the less effort one?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I would hope that you want to have an NFT project and want to be a part of an NFT project rather than are going, wow, the amount of projects that have raised $1 million selling an NFT is so high. I should do that and get myself $1 million. Like, you gotta, are you trying to take advantage of the community, or are you trying to build it up and build a part of it? Because it just might not be worth it for you to try and grab this money that you think is going to be easy and feel good.
I'm going to go to the next question because it's already ties in. Travelex says, what are best practices for what to do with the funds raised in a 5 to 10K PFP project? How much should founders cash out and on what schedule versus put in the treasury, etc.? What are some red flags?
One thing that I've heard people talk about a lot lately, and sort of directly ties back to like incentive structures that we see in existing things, is it can be really nice for people in a project. So again, let's give this example, a 10K profile picture project. If you have a team of, say, 5 people that make it, to have each of them keep 4 of the NFTs and not take anything out of the treasury, and then you have to count on the fact that you have a sustaining royalty market and the value of these some NFTs you kept for yourselves as the way for it to be a successful project. And then your incentives and the community holders' incentives are aligned, and that's what people generally want, and is also liable to give you the best results, rather than going, okay, I'm going to raise all this money, we're going to take out 75% of it, and then the founders of the project no longer really need the project to succeed to have had a really nice financial windfall from it. And so, that's good for them in the short run, but worse for them in the long run, and worse for the community in the short and long run.
I've read an interesting tweet thread, I think by Punk4156 on this sort of topic. They are very anti like royalties and anti intellectual property rights and stuff like that. Ironically, they were praising Lava Labs for what they did with the CryptoPunks, which was free mint and no royalties, but they reserved 10% of the supply, so 1,000 CryptoPunks. So if the collection is successful, then they can sell some of those punks to add to their personal pockets, the treasury, whatever they needed.
Right.
And the incentives are then aligned in floor price go up, and less so in secondary market activity and revenue and buying and selling, which which I think is an interesting
at this point, that does seem like too much of the supply for a new project to try and hold for themselves, especially if you had also only had a team of 2 like Larva Labs did.
I kept more than 1,000 for Zen Academy, and I'm a team of one. But it very much so for
but
like
not really as a
promotions and collabs
personal
and
thing.
giveaways.
Yeah, it's not like that's your personal holdings. It's for you to be able to distribute as time goes on. Like for instance, in the poker tournaments, you have 1 or 2 of those a week. Every single time the winner gets one, that kind of thing, which is different from just sitting on them and selling them off slowly like Larva Labs is doing, and then DMCAing the first version. That's a whole other story.
Yeah. Oh boy.
What are some red flags? I mean, if the money gets transferred out of the wallet immediately and the Discord disappears, that's a pretty big red flag, right? And we fucking see it happen now,
Oh, it's so much. It sucks.
People are learning how to make these projects and make the hype for them and take advantage of it. Hey, did you see the thread about the Instagram NFT account? It's just an account NFT on Instagram, and how Mark Cuban owns it or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, but that's sort of an example of people who have just learned the mechanics of getting a project that mints out that you don't really support at all in the long run and don't actually try to build up. And so you just are collecting your low 7-figure amount over and over and over again, or high 6. I don't really know the mint prices of those, but regardless.
There was also another really cool, but interesting thread on this in the same vein, where someone created a project, tons of hype, had lots of people in the Discord, and then they tweeted out, "This project is not real." Basically, we figured out how to generate this hype and momentum, and all you were like frothing at the mouth to mint, and it was just there's nothing there.
Yeah, we could have easily just got $2 to $3 million from selling this to you, and it was just an example of we're showing you how easy it is to drum up this interest and make it seem like there's something real happening behind the scenes or whatever. That was a pretty clever thread. Yeah.
How much should founders cash out and on what schedule versus put in their treasury? I think that varies very wildly depending on the project and their goals and whether and on tax things and stuff like that. But generally,
I'd just say the overarching thing again is try to make sure that your incentives as the founder are aligned with the holders. That's ultimately what we kind of all want, and what is most likely to result in a project that is actually successful in the long run. For founders and holders.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a fan of projects where the founders basically cash out very little, or, you put everything back into the project becomes wildly successful. You're investing in yourself, you're investing in your project. You can, if you want to in the future, cash out probably 10 times the amount if that's successful. Obviously, I think founders should get paid, rewarded for their work. If it's a cool project, they've been working 16 hours a day for months and months and are dedicated to continue working, of course, personal profit and reward is sensible. But, if you raise $3 million and then $1.5 million of that goes to the team's personal accounts, and then there's 1.5 left for the project, that seems kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, definitely. So have you ever heard of back in ancient warfare times when, this army sails off to go fight these people, and then you land, the generals would then burn the boats. So that way their army knew the only way for us to succeed here is to actually conquer these people. There's no turning back.
That's cool.
That's sort of the ultimate version of that in an NFT project would be you're just not taking anything out of the treasury immediately, and you're going, the goal here is to have a successful project, not a successful launch, because there's a difference. And if you reward yourself with the launch, you are basically making it harder to have a successful long-term project because you are already in a cushy position now. You don't need to have the project succeed if your goal was just to stick some money in your pocket in the short term.
Yeah, that's a really cool analogy. One more thing I want to say on this, what are some red flags? I hear this thrown about a lot where people are looking at a smart contract, it's minting, and then they see that the money is being withdrawn very quickly, or as soon as it sells out, it's all gone. Yeah. And they say that's a red flag. I think that's not, or usually not, because I spoke to a bunch of devs with my project, and every single one was said, you should be making frequent withdrawals just in case there's some random exploit or hack. And, You withdraw that money. It's not like you're withdrawing it straight to Tornado Cash.
If it's going into a tornado, that's a different thing.
Then you're in trouble. But Tornado Cash, for those that are unaware, is like this protocol where you can deposit money and a lot of other people deposit money, and it just like mixes it all up. So no one, and then like sends it out to a fresh ETH address, and there's basically no trace of where it actually came from.
Essentially, it's like a money laundering protocol, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you're just withdrawing money from the contract to another ETH address, to an exchange somewhere, even if you're withdrawing it and then instantly converting it to USDC, that's not a red flag. That's in many cases smart, because like a lot of the world runs on USD, and like if you need to pay employees, develop a game, whatever you're building, account for taxes, there's lots of valid reasons for that. So I mean, that to me is like a real, almost annoying piece of FUD that I see all the time.
You want to look, I would say, at the messaging versus the actions, and if there's an incongruity, is that how you say that word?
Yeah.
Then that's a red flag. But if what they're doing with the funds is in keeping with what their plans were, then that's that's fine. All right, I think we've answered that. Crypto Queen says, do you think that a rise in Ethereum prices will cause an NFT bear market, or will 1F equals 1F help the NFT market form a market trend untied to that of Ethereum? Now, this is something that we've covered a lot in like our previous episodes that had some Q&A, because it's a general question that comes up a lot. Excuse me. People are concerned about, and ultimately my thing is that I think the NFT market in lower priced projects is basically inversely correlated to use of the Ethereum network. So if prices are going up or down a lot, and that's causing a lot of people to just put in transactions for DeFi, they're trying to get long, they're trying to get short, they're liquidating, they're hedging, any of that activity that comes a lot when the market is moving rapidly in either direction, that means that gas prices are going up, which is very prohibitive for the smaller projects. And I always feel like that is bad for them. And I think in general, prices of ETH going up or down is not as strictly correlated with just the pricing in ETH of NFT projects at all. It has more to do with, on the lower end of the spectrum, when the market activity and thus gas prices goes up, that's what's really bad for the lower end projects to me. Because again, in the time we've been around, which is sort of a long time, but sort of not, because NFTs are new or whatever, we have seen ETH go up a lot, while like all of the main projects' prices also went up in ETH. And we've seen sort of all of the combinations of the four: ETH going up, ETH going down, NFT prices in ETH going up, NFT prices in ETH going down. We've seen all the combinations of that. There's four of those technically combinations. But the trend that I see continuing again is the one that has to do with gas prices and cheaper projects undercutting the floor, because it's just harder to find buyers at that moment.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with that. I think that there is some correlation with high ETH prices and lower and like prices of NFTs in ETH not going up as much as if ETH was staying the same or like dropping. It just seems to be like a new market participant coming along to buy a I'm not going to say a Bored Ape, but let's say a Robotos or something at 1 ETH. If they have to convert $4,500 to buy that versus $2,000 to buy that, it makes it so much easier for new market participants to enter at that price point, especially if they've been like on the sidelines looking at, I like that project, I can't afford it. And then all of a sudden it becomes cheaper because ETH has dropped.
I think new buyers are coming in with an amount of fiat in their mind that they're ready to invest in NFTs. And so in that sense, it can definitely affect it. I would say when you have basically flat ETH prices, that's when it would be sensibly easiest for you to just be able to gauge the NFT market on the strengths of the NFTs because you don't have that underlying volatile asset that everything is priced in that people also have to, worry about or whatever.
I basically always seem to say and think that I think when ETH is like trending sideways, that's like the best for NFTs because generally it means gas isn't going crazy. And it means that it just sort of gives NFTs a space and time to shine. People anchor the price of like ETH USD in their mind and they're comfortable with it and they're not worrying about, oh, I should sell my NFT because it's about to pop because it's been going up a few percent each day for the last week. Or I should sell my NFT because it's going to and tank and sell the ETH because ETH is going to drop and all this other stuff. If it trends sideways for a while, I think that's when NFTs do flourish. And I think as time goes on, we'll see like less of a correlation just as the NFT market matures.
That's what I wanted to get at. I saw you tweeted, I think today maybe actually also, this is adjacent, but you were basically saying that you saw the NFT marketplace as a whole is moving less in lockstep and you're seeing a little bit more of, it's not the NFT market is going up or the NFT market is going down. You're seeing this project's going up, this project's going down, this is stagnating to where people are sort of discerning and separating them from each other, which is nice. And I think also sort of the logical extension of that is seeing the NFT marketplace overall becoming less correlated with the underlying asset of Ethereum.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it just at this point, it's all still very much crypto native participants or people who are just starting to dabble in crypto, in which case, so the people that are very crypto native have a huge percentage of their net worth in crypto on average, and so are more just prone to feeling something when things go a long way or prone to justifiably make a reaction when prices go big one way or the other in crypto. Or, conversely, the newer people that are just getting into crypto, where if they see any volatility, they're not as used to it probably as the other people. And so even though they have less of a percentage in there, they might be scared off easier.
Yeah. All right, last question. Britch.eth says, could you talk about Jamie's recent Hirst acquisition and the game theory of whether to burn or not? You you received a currency by Damien Hirst.
I bought it.
You bought it, but it was like someone accepted your bid. So it was like you didn't market buy it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Had one of your offers
I bid
accepted.
on one.
Yeah. You had an offer accepted. 3.5 ETH, I think.
Yes, which was a good price considering where the floor is right now. Which is basically
probably talking about what he wants since the beginning of this podcast, or soon after when they release. So
it's definitely been one that I've been looking. I mean, initially it rocketed up and it's out of my price range, but then it slowly trended down, and I've wanted one for a while. And I kind of wasn't expecting to get this. I had almost forgotten that I'd made this collection offer on LooksRare, which, by the way, I just shout out to them because honestly, I sort of acquired it in theoretically the same way that I used to get a lot of my art blocks where I'm just bidding on a lot of the ones that I want. But when I would do that with like elementals or fidenzas, when I sadly tried to get them, I would go through the entire collection and I would open up a new tab on every single one that I liked a little bit and go, and it would take fucking literally hours. And for this on LooksRare, I said, make collection offer 3.5. And I did this 2 weeks ago or something and just forgot about it. And then I but logged on to my MetaMask or whatever yesterday and was like, what happened to my money? And then looked and I saw that I got it. So just so awesome how much easier that is. Yeah. Now back to the question. Talk about the acquisition. I guess we did that. So that was actually to the question. The game theory, though, of whether to burn it or not. So for people who don't know, Damien Hirst is a super famous established artist in the traditional art world, and made this NFT project called The Currency. And there's 10,000 of them. And at the end of July, I believe is the end of this. These are physical pieces of art that they've created. I say they because he has a bunch of assistants that actually do a lot of the work. rather than him hand doing it all. Anyway, there's 10,000 of them, and each one is now basically represented by an NFT. And every owner of the NFT has the option to burn the NFT and receive the physical artwork, or keep the NFT and the physical artwork will be burned. And so, just from a simple supply and demand situation, if you assume that demand for both is equal, then the game theoretically correct choice, if you're only worried about monetary value, would be to keep whichever one less of the market is going to have. There's obviously some layers of complexity to it that go beyond that. For instance, it's going to be easier to verify the authenticity and sell the NFT than it would be to sell the physicals, as a for instance. But also, it's art, and you have to get into the non-financial side of it. Do you want to keep the physical as a piece of art, or do you want to keep the NFT as a piece of art? That's a whole other thing. But in terms of the game theory, it's pretty simple, because there's only two decisions, and the market goes, making this decision means you can't make this decision, and the supply of this one means it's just zero sum. There's 10,000 total, and it's going to be split amongst NFTs and physicals. So ultimately, if you are trying to do it from a financial game theoretic sense, the best option would be to just basically wait as long as possible and see which way the market is going, and try to be on the minority side, because then you are on the side that has a much smaller supply. Yeah,
I think you thoroughly covered that. What about like game theory aside? I mean, just like personal preference, I guess. Have you thought much about what you would prefer?
A lot of people, I tweeted about how I got it yesterday, and that was the number one question I got. My plan right now is to take possession of the physical, and mainly just because I have a great NFT art collection right now, but I have a very limited physical art collection. So to me, it just seems like it would be nice to bulk up the physical side of that. And also, a lot of the NFT art that I have, I would like to get prints made of them, various art blocks and stuff like that. I'm definitely going to do it with my Fragments of the Infinite Field once I have a full collection. Actually, that's the other thing that I've been talking about incessantly. I wanted the Hirst and the Autumn Fragments. I still haven't got the Autumn Fragments, but now I got the Hirst. Anyway, because this is an actual physical piece of art, the original in a very true sense is the physical, whereas, something like Fragments of the Infinite Field, the true original is the NFT. And so there's something nice about actually keeping the original in both of these instances. But also, if you actually look at the Damien Hirst, maybe we could do a screen share of this.
Yeah. Do you want me to pull up yours?
No, I want you to pull up yours.
Okay.
Just because you're more technologically savvy here.
Yeah, but I can pull up yours, basically.
Oh, my Damien Hirst.
Yes.
You're saying. Yes, that's what I wanted you to do.
Okay. I found mine, but I'll find yours now.
It's the same one, or not the same one, but you can see what I'm talking about with either one.
Well, now I'm well entrenched in it. Is it in your vault?
Yeah, it's called The Limelight, though. You could also just search for that as the asset name.
The Limelight. That looks like it. Jamie Musing's vault. And share screen.
Looks rare. It gives you much better image quality, I find, than OpenSea. I don't know if you've noticed that, but when you click on them, you're getting higher resolution there.
I had not noticed that, but there we go.
Yeah, and so you can see that there's a good amount of texture, and especially if you did what I said and went to Illustrator for the higher resolution one. But with something where you can literally see the three-dimensional scale of the paint on there, the texture of it, that's the kind of thing where there's a little bit something extra to having the actual physical than to have the flattened digital version of it.
Does this work? Is it
Yeah.
showing my screen? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And they're not particularly big, so it's not like
Yeah, they're like a postcard, right?
no,
Well,
but more like a computer paper, basically, something like that
okay.
size.
Yeah.
So it's something that you can put on a wall without really needing a giant space for it, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's also a thing where, you know, I would be more likely to keep the NFT if we were, again, this is something we talk about a lot. If we were in a situation where digital frames were more advanced, I would be more happy to. But
We're
I think
getting
maybe
there,
the
though.
best. Yeah, we are. And actually, I've seen a couple people have these on their TVs, and they do look quite nice. Where you're basically just using like one of those Samsung TVs as a frame. But yeah, I'm not certain what I'm going to do, but I'm definitely leaning towards the physical right now.
Cool. Let me stop sharing this. I have one as well. I have not thought a lot about it. My plan was for a long time to just sort of do the game theory thing and sort of like see, you know, if there's a big discrepancy, go the other way, with a slight lean towards the physical, because again, for similar reasons, it would be cool to have a physical traditional piece of art. And then more recently, it's my plan is just to buy another one, because I've fortunately come into all this ETH lately, and it's not a crazy option anymore.
And the price is like not crazy compared to
so
where
much,
it was. They went crazy for a while. You know what I loved though, seeing on Twitter when I tweeted about it, I had a lot of people interacting with it and stuff. And several people contacted me, responding, who were basically saying, you know, they're traditional art collectors. They got into this project because it's Damien Hirst and because they wanted a physical Damien Hirst, and they've just fallen down the NFT rabbit hole. And humorously, these traditional art people who were sure that they were just doing it to get the physical are now planning on keeping the NFT. And me, who's basically NFT native, are going, I think I want to keep the
That's
original,
really cool.
which I thought that was really fun. But also so cool that, you know, he's onboarding these traditional people and they're going, wow, this is actually like a much more interesting, compelling space than I had realized.
Yeah. I'm very tempted to buy the floor one now. It's 4.2 ETH. But
on LooksRare or on OpenSea?
No, it's 4.7 on LooksRare, 4.2 on OpenSea. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll throw out a collection offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it works for me.
Yeah. It's a cool idea.
It's sort of an interesting project where like it's intentional that they all look very similar. So it's one where a collection offer to me is much more reasonable than like there's a lot of art blocks projects where the difference between how much I like the nicest one in the collection to me, you know, nicest to me versus the least nice to me is humongous. Whereas in this project, it's very minimal. And so I felt, you know, super happy to make a collection offer on it.
Yeah. All right, Jamie, it's that time. Should we play that game?
I thought we weren't doing it.
Yeah, we're not doing the POAP, but I want to practice.
You want to just do it for fun?
I've had a bad run.
I got a word.
I got a word too. All right, you're having
3, 2, 1. Television.
Webcam.
Television.
That is, we got very close.
We did.
Almost too close.
Almost too close. We do that a lot, don't we? Okay, I got one.
I see two obvious answers.
I do too, and I'm we can't say anymore. 3, 2, 1. Video.
Laptop.
Oh, that was not what I was just thinking camera, but that seemed too similar to webcam.
Yeah.
Laptop and video. Okay, I got something here.
Sure.
You're not going to get it with that lack of confidence. 3, 2, 1. Graphics card. Graphics card and movie. Uh-oh. Okay, I got one.
Sure.
3, 2, 1. CGI.
Monitor.
You're just staying in the same space. You need to merge the two.
So monitor
CGI
and CGI.
And monitor.
Okay. Graphics card would be really good for this one. Mm-hmm.
I hate when we get to this point in this game.
Oh, I have a great idea. I'm a genius, Jamie.
CGI and monitor.
Yeah.
I got to think of something quick because this is an unacceptably long. 3, 2, 1. Animation.
Mushroom. You know what's crazy? I was gonna say animation.
Mushroom.
But then I was like, you know, we're too close. Let me just go completely, not say something in between. And then, we'll have a new starting point. But animation, well, I was going to say like animated, but I guess we would have given.
I cannot believe you just said that. Okay, so mushroom and animation.
Animated,
I got something.
Animation. Oh, I don't. Sure, I got something.
3, 2, 1. Mario. Yes.
I did it.
Yes, we got it.
Mushroom for the win.
If we were doing POAPs, that would be the word, but we are not because it has been terrible for us, for the listeners, and for Vitor. So until we get that straightened out, we're not going to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
there's nothing we can do with that.
This has been another successful episode of Two Bored Apes.
Q&A.
Twitter Q&A. Episode 30 in the books.
Yep.
Read my new Substack post that just came out today. We'll have a link in the show notes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and watch. This is on YouTube. If you're listening to it, then
yes,
we will hopefully have a link to the YouTube in the show notes, but maybe not, depending on when it goes out. But
we can at least have a link to the channel. So even if it's not,
we'll do that.
And it'll be easy to find because it's a new channel. There's only like 3 videos, so this will be the 4th one, basically.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks for listening. Tell a friend. Rate us. All the good stuff. Bye.
Bye.
Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff. Two Bored